Be warned, readers, this video may contain spoilers for the content included. Now that you have been fairly warned, let's begin today's retrospective. Welcome back to a series of unfortunate events, The Reptile Room, by Lemony Snicket. In Chapter 11, while Klaus and Sunny distracted the adults, Violet concocted a way to open the lock on Count Olaf's suitcase. Very carefully, Violet took the metal wires out of a lamp plug and fastened a lockpick out of them with a thumbtack. She then quietly went outside to the pile of luggage. She worked the lock over and over to no avail. She felt the sensation of being watched and noticed that Count Olaf could see her. She knew now that at any point he could stop her. An idea popped into her head and she ran back into the house. She rubbed the lockpick with wet soap in order to grease the lockpick. With one more try, the lockpick broke. Despair fell on the eldest Baudelaire, but when she put her hand on the suitcase, the padlock fell off. The lockpick worked after all. With one obstacle out of the way, the only thing left to do was to figure out how all of Count Olaf's items could be used as evidence. In his suitcase were a sealed glass vial, a syringe, a small bunch of folded papers, a laminated card, a powder puff, and a small hand mirror. Concentrating on each piece as a part of an intricate machine, Violet knew exactly how everything fit together. In Chapter 12, Count Olaf stared at Klaus, Sunny, Mr. Poe, and Dr. Lucafont after he just revealed he knew more about snakes than he let on. Mr. Poe demanded answers, and the Count said that he was just being modest when he said he knew nothing about snakes, and attempted to leave. Klaus said that he wasn't being modest, he's a liar, and a murderer. Count Olaf says they have no proof of that, but that's when Violet came in with the items she found in Count Olaf's suitcase. Violet and Klaus explained that Uncle Monty had to have been murdered, because he was not strangled by the Mamba du Mal before being bitten. Mr. Poe and Dr. Lucafont declared it didn't have to be murder, but Violet clarified how it was. In Count Olaf's suitcase were a vial of the Mamba du Mal's venom, and a syringe. She said that Count Olaf injected Monty with the venom and then made an extra hole to make it look like a snake bite. The Count declared that he loved Uncle Monty, so he had no reason to kill him. Violet also explained that when she's 18, she inherits the Baudelaire fortune, and he wanted it for himself. It would be easier to obtain in Peru, but Uncle Monty tore up Stefano's ticket. In order to get on the boat to Peru, the Count killed Uncle Monty, took his Herpetological Society card and ticket in order to pose as the good doctor. Still seeing Count Olaf as Stefano, Mr. Poe was confused as to how he would know about the Baudelaire fortune. Violet explained once more that Stefano was really Count Olaf. He disguised himself and covered up his tattoo with stage makeup. Count Olaf said that was absurd. Mr. Poe asked if anyone had a cloth in order to wipe away the makeup. No one had a cloth, so Mr. Poe used his handkerchief. To Count Olaf's disgust, Mr. Poe wiped away the makeup to reveal the Count's eye tattoo. For the first time in their young lives, the Baudelaire children were happy to see that horrible tattoo again. What an excellent pair of chapters. I've always been fond of seeing a story through multiple points of view, and, having this end up being somewhat of a murder mystery, it's important to have it that way. Every child had their own role in this mystery as well. Violet's the detective, Klaus is the researcher, and Sunny is the muscle/distraction. Which is funny that a baby is the muscle, but her teeth are pretty vicious. Also, I'm glad that Sunny was not in danger this time around, but only pretended to be. Not only did Handler write the story through multiple points of view, but he also dedicated an entire page to the word ever. He literally wrote the word enough to fill an entire page just to get the point across that you should never mess with electrical devices. I don't know how many authors are willing to do silly things like that. I can only imagine the look an editor gave him, and I don't know how he got away with it. To me, that feels like someone would say, "That's ridiculous, that's a waste of a page." I want to know how he got away with it. Or maybe he didn't have to fight anyone on it, because it's great. I would like to see more people do something else with what they have. To a lot of authors, a book is just something to tell a story on. But it could be so much more as a visual medium. Yeah, an illustrator can add a page here and there, but an author can literally make art with their words. When I eventually make books, I want to do so much more than just tell stories. I want to take advantage of the ink and paper that I have, and whatever technology comes out. Handler proves that books can be more than just stories. that you can have fun with your work, and that's inspiring. Creating a character as the author telling the story of other fictional characters as if it were real is just the tip of the iceberg of what an author can really do. As much praise as I give Daniel Handler, I am a little confused about a couple things in this section. One thing, Klaus was confused about the ticket. I was under the impression that the kids knew what was going on, that Olaf was trying to take the kids to Peru instead. Like, adding that he brought up the ticket in question, it made it seem like Klaus was clueless about what Count Olaf had intended to do. I don't know, there's something about that just bugs me. My main question is, how does going to a different country ensure that Count Olaf will get the fortune? I understand he could probably kill them, but how does that link to him getting the fortune? I guess at that point he would be posing as Uncle Monty, but that doesn't really ensure that he would get the fortune. I mean, at some point he would have to get the money, and even though he could get on a boat posing as Uncle Monty, Mr. Poe is still in charge of the fortune, so he would have to give it to him himself. But he would know that he wouldn't at least be Uncle Monty, he would be Stefano. So how does that ensure that Count Olaf will get the fortune? I really want to know how that works. But it doesn't matter since the Count has been found out. Clearly the next thing that should happen is Count Olaf gets arrested for murder, and the children never have to see him again. And yet, there is still something more about that Dr. Lucafont. And as we all know, the Baudelaire children's lives are filled with unfortunate events and disappointment. Until the end, readers, keep on reading.